19, number 19. 19.
I don't agree with you, though. I'm sorry, but you're entitled to your opinion.
We went to a conference this morning at the Chamber of Commerce, Cecil County Chamber of Commerce. And the main topic was the opioid and other drug epidemics in Cecil County. I heard him say that this year so far we have had over 500 deaths. And that puts Cecil County second to Baltimore in this kind of statistic.
You sure it's not overdoses? It can't be deaths.
Yeah, 51.
50, yeah.
Was announced at the council meeting on Tuesday morning, sir. I was there, I heard.
But I do know Cecil County has a problem with it. I know because about a few years ago I helped get the high intensity drug trafficking corridor designation so that we
Remember, I heard
could
this
get some more
morning was
funds
over
here.
500.
No, it's not even statewide. It's
My question goes to this,
But-
if you recognize that Cecil County has a serious problem with
Yes.
drug overdose, what can you do to help us?
sure. So what have I done? And
Affecting
again,
everybody.
so a few years ago we got the HIDTA designation, which brings more federal funds into areas where drug trafficking is a problem. Because I think one of the problems is these counties, you sit on I-95. If you're on a drug trafficking route, it's really easy to get drugs into here off from I-95. So the first thing is we had to do, try to stop the flow of drugs. Then the next thing we did is we passed the bill both in a mental health bill that funded the SAMHSA, which is the HHS mental health organization, increased their funding, and developed specific grants to go to communities for drug use. And I think Cecil County just got one recently, right? We just got one. So what I've gone around is to go to my 12 counties and say, look, apply for these grants. They're ready. When you're ready to apply for the grant, call our office. We send a cover letter saying, please fund this. If it's very important, we make a call over to HHS. I am in the president's party, so they actually take my phone calls over there and say, look, this is a real important one. And we keep our fingers crossed that some money comes in. Now, I will tell you, my biggest frustration is that we're kind of getting the first few parts right, which is, let's decrease the number of prescriptions. Let's try to, seize more of the fentanyl, especially because that's what the killer drug is. I've used fentanyl in the OR for 30 years. Let me tell you something. A very, very small amount can kill you. I know, because it has to be very carefully used in the operating room. So we're going to deal with trying to decrease the flow of fentanyl, especially from China. That's where most of the fentanyl comes from, although now some comes from Mexico. This is why the president thinks border security is so important, because we should do everything we can to stop the flow of illegal drugs across the border. And fentanyl is one of the illegal drugs now that crosses the border. We have to get enough treatment slots. And last time I was up here, my understanding is Cecil County is pretty good with the number of treatment slots. But then the last thing is we have to realize that you are never cured from addiction. You are only in remission. Why do I say that's important? Because an 18-year-old who goes to treatment, goes into remission, has their whole life in front of them, at which time they are at very high risk for recidivism. And if you don't provide the right environment, the right resources in the community, and I will tell you these differ from community to community, what it needs, that person will go back into drug use. We've kind of neglected that last step, which is kind of a lifelong need to support what are frequently nonprofit agencies. A lot of the post-treatment work is done by nonprofits, but as most nonprofits, they could use a helping hand. For instance, in a rural community, I visited one of these in Salisbury. In a rural community, it's great. They have volunteers, a lot of them former addicts, who work with people coming off recovery, making sure they've got the job skills, they get the daycare, they arrange things, but they live 30 minutes away without a car. Well, the trouble is you need to get transportation to them. So one of my suggestions, and I talked with the administration about this, is we have to make sure that these grants are available for things like transportation in a rural community to get someone to these nonprofit centers. That's the kind of the last little step, is to make sure that we realize this is a lifelong problem with a lifelong solution that actually has to be community-based and tailored to the community. Because what works in Baltimore City is going to be very different from what works in Cecil County. And one-size-fits-none doesn't work. So that's where I think the federal government can work. And I'm trying to solve that aspect, because it is terrible. I mean, it's terrible. And again, you know, I'm a physician, I know. I mean, the physicians wrote too many pain pills. You know, you went in for a tooth pulled and you came out with 40 pills. Most people take 5. You know, but we're going to deal with that as well.